Hello, Rama Pupodu. Hope all are in good health, feeling great, wonderful, having a happy and peaceful life. Now let's go to the next devotee, Kavyakantha Ganapati Muni. It is late 19th century, Navadip, Bengal. A 14-year-old boy sits amidst a group of scholars, mathematicians, poets, a music master, and an astrologer, among others. The mathematicians give him a six-digit number to be multiplied by another six-digit number. One poet recites the last two lines of a Sanskrit verse and challenges the boy to compose the first two lines in the same meter and complete it. The other poet, meanwhile, gives him a subject to immediately compose a four-line Sanskrit verse on. The astrologer places before him a complex pattern of planetary positions and asks him what the consequence will be. The musician hums a few notes of a particularly obscure raga and asks the boy to identify it. Another man rattles off a random date like February 18, 1756 and asks what day that was. As if all this weren't enough, another man stands behind the boy and throws tiny pebbles on his back while the others throw their challenges. The boy is expected to simultaneously keep count of how many pebbles were thrown. The boy answers all of them instantaneously, correctly, brilliantly, to the tumultuous applause of a worker-struck audience. This boy wonder, Kavyakantha Ganapati Muni. Muni means one who is steeped in manana, contemplation, soon won acclaim all over India. He was to later become one of the foremost devotees of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharishi. Before he was born, his pious parents had no children. His father went to Benares and prayed at the Ganesa temple there. He had a vision of the idol of Lord Ganesha coming to life and merging with him. At the very same time, back in his village, his wife saw the idol of the goddess in the local temple turn into light and enter her. Soon after, a son was born to the couple. They named him Ganapati in gratitude to Lord Ganesha. However, to their utter disappointment, the boy could not talk at all. Until the age of 5, he remained mute and expressionless. Moreover, he was plagued with many diseases, including epilepsy. In a desperate attempt to cure him, they resorted to the age-old practice of branding him with a red-hot iron rod. This treatment had far-reaching effects. The shock unleashed the boy's latent talents, and he became exceptionally brilliant. His retentive power, his concentration, his capacity to imbibe whatever he read and quoted verbatim increased manifold. By the age of 9, he had mastered Sanskrit literature, and by the age of 11, he had memorized all the four Vedas and the Upanishads. When he was 14 years old, Ganapati composed a drama in Sanskrit, which is acclaimed even today as one of the best in that language. The ancient scriptures mention that the rishis of yore did penance and God appeared before them and granted boons. Strongly influenced by these texts, Kavyakantha sought to achieve the same. He got married when he was 18 years old, but his fervor to have God's darshan became more intense. He embarked on a long pilgrimage, visited temples as well as all the sacred rivers like the Ganges, and did penance. His penance was rigorous. He remained silent and motionless for long periods and went without food. Though he meticulously observed all the rules of traditional penance, God did not appear before him. When he failed to find God through one method of penance, he tried another method with equal sincerity. With every method failing, Kavyakantha finally took the last resort, doing penance in the 5 holy places dedicated to Lord Shiva, representing the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. One must visit each place in a particular order and arrive finally in the place dedicated to fire, Arunachala, where the devotee's penance, tapas, is said to be rewarded. Kavyakantha followed the necessary rituals in each place and finally reached Arunachala in 1904. During the course of his penance in Arunachaleshwara temple, Kavyakantha once went up the hill and saw Bhagavan sitting with eyes closed, absorbed in samadhi. Disappointed by Bhagavan's continued silence, he came away. He took up a job as a teacher in the neighboring town called Velur and continued his sadhana. In 1907, he became dejected and felt that his life was futile. Though he had mastered the scriptures and experienced Kundalini, he still hadn't found a method that gave him permanent anchorage in the source of Shakti that he called God. He decided, I am going again to Arunachala and the final destination for one's search for God according to the scriptures. If I do not attain God this time, I am going to proclaim that the Vedas, Upanishads, and all the Hindu scriptures are just exaggerations of poetic minds. With this resolve, he returned to Arunachala. A Shiva shrine is located at each of the 8 cardinal directions on the circumambulation route around Arunachala. Determined to perform his penance to the best of his capacity, he went southwest to the Nirudilingam shrine. It was surrounded by forests at the time. He took shelter in the hollow of a large dead tree and resumed his severe penance of being silent and going without food. After the 5th or 6th day, the Divine Mother spoke to him. Until you have a guru, you cannot achieve your goal. Your guru is up there on the hill. Surrender at his holy feet and you will get his grace. Go now. Kavyakantha leapt out of the hollow. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and the sun was beating down hard. The Kartige festival was on, and hundreds of people thronged around the hill. Undeterred, he ran up the hill to Virupaksha cave and found Bhagavan sitting alone outside. Bhagavan directed his glance of grace at Kavyakantha. Like many devotees before him, he was transfixed and could not take his eyes off Bhagavan. Kavyakantha, an erudite scholar, had never prostrated himself before any human being. Suddenly he found himself flat on the ground in front of the young ascetic. He held Bhagavan's feet tightly and cried, I have read all that has to be read. I have fully read Vedanta. I have performed japa to my heart's content, yet I have not understood what tapas is. Therefore, I have sought refuge at your feet. Pray, enlighten me as to the nature of tapas. The word tapas in Sanskrit literally means striving for the realization of truth, true penance, and austerity. However, Bhagavan imparted his deeper meaning to Kavyakantha. Helping him rise to his feet, Bhagavan looked into his eyes and after some time slowly replied, If one watches from where the notion I arises, the mind is absorbed into that. That is tapas. And since Kavyakantha had himself revealed that he practiced mantra japa, repeating mantras thousands of times every day, the master added, when repeating a mantra, if one watches the source from which the sound is produced, the mind is absorbed in that. That is tapas. These revelations thrilled Kavyakantha. He finally understood how to be in touch with the truth through a practical method. Wave after wave of ecstasy flooded through him for hours in the presence of the ascetic. At last, when he opened his eyes, he asked the attendant Palani Swami for the ascetic's name. Though he was then called Ramana Swami, Kavyakantha learnt that his real name was Venkataraman. Kavyakantha took Ramana from his name, and since he had seen God in this ascetic, he named him Bhagavan. Bhagavan in Sanskrit means God, as he had also given a revelation truth about tapas which no scripture had ever explained so clearly before. To Kavyakantha, Bhagavan was also a Vedic rishi. Rishi means sage and is derived from the Drashata, which means seer, one who has seen with the inner eye and not with just the physical eyes. A rishi is he who is ever connected to the original, inexhaustible source of wisdom. But to Kavyakantha, Bhagavan was not only a rishi, but a Maharishi, a great rishi. Therefore, he named the ascetic Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharishi. This name, Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharishi, the chanting of which had lured countless people to the silent, still truth, was given by this gifted genius, Kavyakantha Ganapati Muni. At that time, he had over 200 disciples of his own, including noble scholars like Daivrata and Kapali Shastri. He wrote a letter to them saying, I have found my Guru. Henceforth, it is not I, but Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharishi, who is our Guru. The next day, he went to Bhagavan and said, Bhagavan, please accept me. Bhagavan graciously conceded to his request and said, stay in the cave that is adjacent to Virupaksha cave, called Mango Tree Cave. Its proximity to Virupaksha cave allowed the Guru and disciple to visit each other every day. Bhagavan continued to pour his grace and help Kavyakantha mature spiritually. Bhagavan held Kavyakantha in high esteem and addressed him with much respect. One day, Kavyakantha held Bhagavan's feet and begged, please, Bhagavan, do not address me respectfully. I am your disciple and your child. Do not address me in such reverential terms. But Bhagavan continued to do so. He then learned from his other disciples and Kavyakantha's admirers that they referred to him as Nayana, which means father. In Sanskrit, Bhagavan told Kavyakantha, hereafter I will call you Nayana. Nayana accepted this because in Telugu the word also meant disciple or child. It is interesting to note that Kavyakantha was a staunch devotee of Shiva, the formless father aspect of God. He had never worshipped God in the aspect of the mother. However, from the moment the mother showed his Guru to him, he became her devotee as well. The side of the hill in front of which the Arunachaleshwara temple is located is called the front of the hill. The stretch from Nirdilingam to the Ishanya Lingam, southwest to northeast, is the back. A little known secret about Arunachala is that the front is the father aspect while the back is the mother aspect. All miracles and powers, spiritual, physical, or worldly, stem from the mother aspect. In the lives of Bhagavan's devotees, miracles and visions took place between Nirdilingam and Ishanya Lingam. With Kavyakantha too, it was at Nirdilingam that the mother aspect guided him to his Guru. He wanted to express his gratitude to the mother by composing 1,000 Sanskrit verses in her praise. He surrendered to Bhagavan and began to work after getting his permission. He chose a sacred day to complete the 1,000 verses. Unfortunately, he fell ill and could write only around 700. The night before his self-imposed deadline, he approached Bhagavan at Virupaksha cave with his problem. Bhagavan encouragingly reassured him, do not worry, I will come and sit with you. It was a wonderful sight. The young master sitting, radiating silence, his older devotee dictating extempo verses in a torrential flow, and his disciples writing down late into the night around the lantern light. Genius that he was, Kavyakantha started dictating the first line of the first verse to the first disciple, the first line of the second verse to the second disciple, the first line of the third verse to the third disciple, and so on. Then he proceeded without stopping to dictate the second line of the first verse to the first disciple, the second line of the second verse to the second disciple, the second line of the third verse to the third disciple, and so on, until at 1:30 in the morning the 1,000 verses were complete. Bhagavan, who until then was sitting with eyes closed in rock-like silence, opened his eyes and asked, have you taken down all that I dictated? Kavyakantha fell at his Guru's feet and cried, yes, Bhagavan, they are your verses. This anthology of verses is called Uma Sahasram. Uma is the Divine Mother, while Sahasram in Sanskrit means 1,000. Therefore, the title can be translated as Thousand Verses in Praise of Divine Mother. Kavyakantha revised the first 700 and odd verses many times, but left the verses that he dictated that wonderful night, verses which he felt came from Bhagavan untouched. When I came back to Ramana Ashramam, some people for whom I had a lot of respect often spoke ill of Kavyakantha. They claimed that his accounts were figments of his imagination. I was influenced by their views. I approached Munagala Venkataramaya, a great scholar, and one of the recorders of the talks with Bhagavan. Munagala had not seen Kavyakantha and was therefore neutral about him. Why do people pull down Kavyakantha so much? I inquired, listing out all the transgression he was rumored to have made. Ganesan, stop, he exclaimed. How did you know all this? I revealed the names of the people who told me this. He replied, they have given an opinion and you have received it. Are you sure it is the truth? I was puzzled. How can we know which opinion is correct? I asked Monangala and then said, Ganesan, don't you know the secret? Whatever Bhagavan says is correct. Whatever everyone says is an opinion. ஏழாவது பாடல். உனையே மாற்றி யோடா துலத்தின்மே லுருதியா இருப்பா யருணாச்சலா. Meaning, without letting my mind deceive you and run round, sit firmly in my heart, Arunachala. That's all, folks. Let's see in the next chapter. Thank you. Bye bye. Rama Rama Pupoda.